And you get through the first time, and then you're like, I can do anything. I just did that. And then you do it again and again, and each time becomes easier. And now the idea of me going, I go to Ireland 3 or 4 times a year, and the idea of going and getting drunk there would be completely crazy. I've plugged in with some sober people over there. I've been able to go explore my program that I use over there. Now it's become completely comfortable, something that I thought would be the most uncomfortable thing. So, it's a matter of doing it. It's a matter of setting up yourself with what you need. The first time I think feels like getting through it, but then you do, and then you build that experience, and then it becomes your normal, which is really abnormal, but wonderful.
Stories are powerful.
Welcome to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast, brought to you by The Phoenix. This is a space where people impacted by substance use can come to share their story of strength and resilience, get open and honest, and inspire hope and build community through shared experience.
We'll be talking to people in our community on their own recovery journey and shine a light on the topic of recovery in all its forms. Maybe you'll hear some of your story in theirs.
Let's show the world that together we rise, recover, and live.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. We are your hosts, Bryce III, he, him pronouns.
Liz McKean, she, her pronouns.
What up, Liz?
What is
up? First of all, I got to tell you all, before we started recording, Liz was, let's party golf style, let's go. And then I asked her what's up, and it's like, I need that same off camera energy, Liz. Let's try this again. What's up, Liz?
Oh, we are partying golf style today is what is up.
Turn up.
That's right.
How's your energy?
It is exactly what it sounds like. It is all over the place. Got back from a conference, done some traveling. I am historically not a great traveler, so I'm getting better, I think, as I go in my time of travel, but it definitely leaves me scattered when I get home. So, but I'm excited to be here because honestly, nothing grounds me like this show, because then we get to sit here and, I get to see you, we get to meet people like our guest that we'll intro in a second. And it allows me to be really present in a way that sometimes life cannot allow for. Yeah. How about you? How you feeling today?
I am pretty straight. I'm pretty straight.
Yeah.
I'm pretty cool. The sun is out. Like I was talking with our as yet unnamed guest.
Our very patient guest.
Off camera. The sun is out. It's still a little chilly, but I'm going to take me a little walk probably here in a minute. Energy's good. Super creative. Been working on a lot of music. So there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. And just released a single on 420 and been kind of working that, and lots of exciting stuff, man. Just super creative. Went to the gym for the first time today after I did this challenge last Friday where I did the 2,000 meter row, the 5K on a tread, and the 300 body weight reps. And so I was a little rusty getting in there today, but got in nonetheless. And yeah, just like you said, I think those present moment practices are super duper important in my life, and this episode or this podcast is one of those for me too. So who do we have here? Oh my goodness. I got too excited there, Liz. Who do we have here today?
Well, it is exciting. He's worth being excited for. We have Tom Coyne today, who is the editor of The Golfer's Journal and a New York Times best-selling author. Yet another Philadelphia guest, because the wonderful Gavin Young continues to introduce us to some of our very favorite people. So welcome, Tom. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you so much for golf clap. The crowd goes crazy. We are going to party golf style.
Heck yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be here, and thanks, Gavin, for putting my name out there. And this is a great chance in the middle of the day to do something other than write or edit golf stories. So this is a treat. Thank you.
Well, the pleasure is definitely ours. And I mean, yeah, there's so many things that I'm excited to talk to you about, including writing and editing, speaking of being creative. And then, and we were talking about before we hit play that we've had, CrossFitters and, musicians, and we've had swimmers and we've had climbers and several surfers, and we have not yet had someone talk about golf and recovery. So this is going to be such a treat. So yeah, we're really excited.
No, it's good. And it's funny when you think of all, those other activities, people don't rank sort of golf. They don't put golf in the sort of fitness stratosphere. But actually right now, the biggest thing, if you're really into golf, people are really chasing fitness. They're chasing speed in their swing to hit the ball farther. And so there's so many training programs out there, people trying to get conditioned and get stronger to play better. So like golf used to be this sort of safe space away from fitness where you could look like anything and play great golf. And now it's become athletic. So good news or bad news, depending if you're into doing that. So yeah, so it's a sport. It's a sport.
I'm excited to get into your relationship to the sport. Anybody who listens to this podcast knows that we love a good metaphor. And when it comes to like a craft or a sport, I feel like there's a lot of like metaphors or analogies that like hold parallel to life in general. Mm-hmm. But before we dig into that, I'm kind of curious, how do you define your recovery?
Yeah, so I define my recovery as every day, waking up and trying to be grateful and trying to do the next right thing. And I try to honestly keep it pretty simple. So I'm coming up on 12 years sober, and thank golf claps. Thank you. And, it's been the best 12 years of my life. The things that, and I can, we can all make the list of like things and, the haves and the career things and all that, but and those are great, but it's not really been about that. It's that sort of feeling, waking up in the morning and feeling like you don't have anything to apologize for. Waking up and feeling like anything might happen today, and you're going to be prepared for it. Like that's something. Those are feelings like I never. That's something I never knew. So my recovery it actually does revolve quite a bit around golf, which is kind of interesting. Like when I got sober, I thought, golf is it's a really good place for drunks to hide. And that's what I was, because there is this acceptance of golf and alcohol kind of going together. It would be, I guess it's less of a sport when you say that it's one of the things that you can do like pretty drunk, or you can actually play it while you're drinking or partaking of whatever. And a lot of people do. And I certainly did. So I thought, all right, when I get sober, like golf is done. That's just not, I can't imagine going back out there and not having a drink while I'm playing or having many, many drinks afterwards. So I'd sort of written golf off. But I found a community of sober golfers, which makes sense because there's so many people in the golf world who fall into that routine that I'd fallen into and need help. So where do they go when they do get help? Well, a lot of them do continue to keep playing golf. And so I found a group of them in Philadelphia that actually were getting together to play, once a month, and they had a whole sort of league established. It was this really organized, wonderful, sober golf league. And so I started dabbling around with that and then got involved there and sort of, found my love of golf again. And I was able to do it and do it soberly, which I thought I would never be able to do. So that's been so great. So now like the people in my recovery that I'm most in contact with are my sober golf friends, the people that my network that I reach out to, and we don't always talk about golf. We don't always talk about sobriety. They've just become my friends. That's the best gift. I mean, I'm going away with one of them this week, actually tomorrow, going down to South Carolina for a golf weekend with a sober buddy. And it's actually to a really cool place, a golf course in South Carolina that was just built and created by a sober guy who wanted to give back after he got out of rehab and got his life together, was like, I want to do something positive in golf. So he created this golf club that's a mission-based club. So if you join, you have to buy into the fact that, okay, it's supporting women and minorities playing, giving them access they won't have elsewhere. It's supporting caddy scholarships for kids to college, that it's doing all these initiatives. So it's a very sort of forward-thinking place. So we're going down there for the weekend. And man, if you would have told me I'd been doing something like that 12 years ago, it would have felt pretty strange, really. So recovery is, hey, it's as we all know, it's a daily thing. So I'm really happy to be. I don't usually get to talk about it in the middle of the afternoon on a Thursday, so it's really good. It's really good to break up the routine of just like, okay, next thing, and think a little bit about your life. And when you do, generally, I find myself feeling pretty damn grateful.
It's awesome. Like Bryce said, we love a metaphor. And I've been really into like cooking shows weirdly lately, which is, I don't cook. I'm lucky for everyone around me. But there was one that I watched recently and the whole show was about salt. And like, she went into like how salt was made and like, how people are afraid to use salt and think, you shouldn't use salt and you're going to over salt and things like that. And she was talking about how like when you salt, your dishes correctly, and I mean, often generously, like it doesn't make the dish just salty. Like it actually brings out the flavor. There's things that like you might not taste until you've added that salt. And I was thinking about, this is like perfect time to bring it up because I was thinking about how like that's sobriety. Like we think that if we add sobriety to our lives, that's it. Like you're only going to taste the salt. You're only going to have sobriety and you have to let go of these other parts of yourself. You have to let go of the golf, let go of the, for other people socializing, things like that. And actually it brings out the flavor of your life. Like actually like you salt your life with that sobriety and all of a sudden all those parts of you that maybe you thought depended on the alcohol, all of a sudden you're realizing, I couldn't even taste them before. I couldn't even actually experience it. And now I get to in this way that is flavorful, that is like life-giving, that is, something that I want to share with other people. And that's just sounds exactly how you're describing,
well, I
something
think
that
that's a perfect metaphor. And it applies to, like, I would say, like the three things, in my life that I do the most, aside from being a dad and a husband, golf, travel, and writing. And those are the sort of, that's basically, I'm doing one of those three things any hour of the day. So, you think, okay, those are things that in my formerly were all tied up in drinking. Gosh, especially travel. How many flights don't I remember? And you think, okay, those are things I'm not going to be able to do. I mean, I wouldn't have done them the first week after getting my stuff together. But over time, I mean, in the last 11, 12 years, I've traveled more, played more golf, and written more and published more than I had in all the other years combined. So that's like you said, life tastes. I'm available and I'm present and I can do the things that I want to do. And a lot of times that's golf or write or travel. And in all those things that I do, I'm intersecting with sober people, which is great. But it's, if I think about, the places and the stuff that I've gotten to do, my wife is sober too, but my mom's been sober for like 50 years and she's 89 now. And she's actually here at my house doing her laundry. I don't know, long story, but she's such a champion of recovery. And I remember getting, when I got sober, she was so happy and so excited for me to sort of be going on that journey, and would always tell me, you're going to have a life beyond your wildest dreams. And she said it so often. I was just like, Mom, stop. Like, you're driving me nuts. You don't want your mom, like your mom telling you, like, you certainly don't want your mom to be like your sponsor. So she's telling me, you're going to have a life beyond your wildest dreams. And damn if she wasn't right. So
moms know.
Yeah, moms know.
And it can seem like it's almost, if you hear that at the front end, especially when you first come in, and like life is what it is, how it was that got you here. Like nobody, at least me, I didn't want to get here. Like, I didn't want to belong to this club. This wasn't a club that I wanted to be in, the sobriety club. So life was kind of funky to get me here. But yeah, I heard that too. You know, I heard it too. And it wasn't even like people set the bar high when people would say things, or I still hear the promises of the program that I'm a part of. And there's still some of those promises that are working on being fulfilled, but there's a lot of them that are fulfilled. And it's like, whoa, this is a life beyond my wildest dreams. And if I would have, even when I first came in, had everything today that I would have wished for when I first came in, like I would have sold myself short, you know? And,
absolutely.
And that continuous process of like taking that next step allows for us to design our life in a way that supports the step that comes after that, you know?
Yep.
So I was at a meeting last night and the guy was talking about traveling, and yeah, traveling is a whole nother beast. And I didn't do a lot of traveling when I was actively using. And when I started doing traveling, like I had to show up with new tools because time zone shift. I can't make time for my meditation. I'm not calling people on a routine like I was. And like life had to switch up, you know? So what are some of the ways that your life had to evolve to show up for this thing that you were so in love with that you thought that I can't even go back there?
Yeah.
For you to be able to have a relationship with it like you do today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. Like in the beginning, how you're thinking like what you're expecting to get out of this or hoping to get out of it. And like initially, like it's like, okay, I just want to wake up and not need something, you know, to feel normal. And then it's like, I just want to know what it feels like to feel like normal. Like the people that walk down the street and I look at them, I'm like, how do you live your life? You know, you know, like
that's so real. That
like,
yeah.
how are you just walking down the street with a smile on your face right now and you're sober? And so going through so that kind of comes around. And you're like, wow. And so it's good to remember. And it's always good to remember that in the beginning, that's all you needed. And now you have it. And so like, you're good. You know, all this other stuff comes in that you probably didn't expect that you're going to be able to do again. And that can kind of complicate things. But, you know, when it came to like, say, you know, when it came to me going back to golf, it was great to have this supportive golf, you know, the supportive sober golfers around me. And then just to be able to see that, okay, we're coming here to play a sport and we can be, and we're really competitive. Like we've taken a lot of the energy that we put into other things and now have put it into getting better at golf and being competitive and going to interesting places. So, so they sort of showed me, okay, you don't have to drink while you're playing. You don't have to drink after. You can actually just go play more golf. So, so that was a good lesson. And then with the traveling, like that was something I was like, there's no way I could ever go on a trip by myself and walk past the airport bar, you know. I did have to set up some rules for myself. Like, okay, when I travel, like I'm always going to have my own car. I'm always going to have my own room. I guess I have the luxury at the time, but that was like, and if I can't afford to do that, I'm not going to go. Just because I needed my space. I needed my way to get out if I needed to get out from something. I didn't want to be rooming with someone who was going to make me uncomfortable or come home loaded or whatever. And just, you know, whatever. I just wanted, and so that I could have my own space and do my own thing. So, and those are still like these many years later. And as a traveling golf writer, sometimes it can make for an awkward conversation. Like, why do you need your own room? Are you like, I'm some prima donna? And I'm like, well, if it's not too much to ask for, yes, I don't have, my only roommate I have anymore is my wife. So, so, you know, like keeping some boundaries, so that I always just feel good. And then, you know, like everything in sobriety, like the first time you do it, I remember, so I write, especially, it was tricky for me because I've written books about Ireland and Scotland. And, well, I did an Ireland book when I was drinking, and then I did a Scotland book once I'd gotten sober. And so after, you know, the Ireland book came out and people read it, whatever. There's a pint of beer on the cover of my book, which is in my head. I'm like, how can I ever be a sober person? I wrote a book with beer on the cover. So, it's like, all right, get over that. And then it's like I'll never be able to go back to Ireland. It did a lot of damage to myself in some pubs over there, and I remember going back like the first time, and I had those rules set up, and I was like, hey, like at night, I need my room, I need my own space. I was traveling with we were doing a little TV thing over there, and I was traveling with a crew that were all on the same van, and I'm like, I'm gonna follow you in another car because I know what's up. I know, and I know what you guys are into, and I'm not going to be into it. And that was, and you get through the first time, and then you're like, I can do anything. I just did that, and then you do it again and again, and each time becomes easier. And now the idea of me going, I go to Ireland 3 or 4 times a year, and the idea of going and getting drunk there would be completely crazy. I've plugged in with some sober people over there. I've, been able to go explore my program that I use over there, which has been really cool. Now it's become completely comfortable, something that I thought would be the most uncomfortable thing. So, it's a matter of doing it. It's a matter of setting up yourself with what you need. The first time I think feels like getting through it. But then you do, and then you build that experience, and then it becomes your normal, which is really abnormal, but wonderful.
I call it building your well-being into your success.
Yeah.
I actually want to pick your brain selfishly, because that's one of the examples that I've used previously, where it's like, we'll cross that bridge when I get to it, but you never know. And it was specifically within Ireland, like culturally, if they offer you a pint and you're like, nah, I'm good, like is that seen as disrespect? Have you had that experience? And if so, like, how did you show up for that?
So I would actually say that the Irish and even, and Scottish or whatever, any of those sort of like countries that we in America like mythologize as like these hard drinking, drunk every night in the pub kind of countries, like, and that I think that's more like how we think about how their countries are, or how their culture is. I mean, yes, there is a huge drinking culture in Ireland. The pub is a central part of Irish culture. But what they don't tell you is that if you go to the pub and you order a Coke, that Coke is actually going to be more expensive. It's going to come in a glass bottle. It's going to be poured into a nice glass. It's going to be more expensive per ounce than Guinness. So there is no shame in going to a pub and having a soft drink. It's just a soft drink, but it's they consider it having a drink. I mean, so you go to the pub to get conversation, to learn the price of sheep that day or whatever. Not everyone is drinking. All the Americans are, because they think that's what they came to Ireland just to do. But it was really cool when I started to look around. I'm like, oh yeah, the musician there, he's just drinking Sprite, and the people over there are just having a conversation. So that pressure from the Irish, I never got from an Irish person, that kind of pressure or experience, and which has been really, really cool. Also, like there's a portion of the population over there, they call them pioneers, which is a funny name to use for someone who decides not to drink, like they're going off to some like other planet. They're a pioneer. But there are people over there who take a pledge when they're younger just to not drink, and there's a fair number of them. So, and they still go to the pubs and have lives. So I think the Irish know better than most the wreckage that alcohol or substances or whatever can cause. And so there is absolutely no judgment. And they also have incredibly strict drunk driving laws. So any alcohol on your breath is you're gone. Your license is done. And so that also, in a pub, no one's ever going to question why you're not drinking. So I'm actually way more comfortable in an Irish pub than I would be in an American bar by a mile. Not that especially I hang around in either of them a lot, but when you're in Ireland, you're in some of these towns, you got to eat. And it's a fun place to be.
Especially if a Coke is a flex. Like, I feel like if I see somebody with a Coke and it costs more than a Guinness, like, oh, I'm about to go to the pub and flex real quick and see where sheep is at for Q3.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's dope. That's dope.
I did
Yeah.
I did a Diet Coke flex the other day when I was at this conference and I was just on the road. It was a resort we were at, like that, that just happened to be where this organization had us meeting. And so when I went to grab my grilled cheese sandwich because I'm a child, he was like, we got this drink on tap, we got this. He's like listing all these drinks. He's like, vacation vibes. And I was just like, well, I'm gonna go crazy and have myself a Diet Coke. And he was like, oh, well, you go, girl. And so I felt kind of fancy with my Diet Coke. You can make whatever flex you want to make a flex, but that's cool to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was delicious, by the way.
Did you put an umbrella in it at least, Liz?
Oh, man, no, I didn't. I felt I was pretty excited about my grilled cheese, though, so it was just a side.
Did they cut it in half for you or like in squares?
Obviously. No, in half. In half.
Right,
A diagonal, though, because it was fancy.
You did it right. You did it right. No, it was funny, Tom. I had like a similar but opposite experience with music where like it was just one of those things that I didn't think that I'd be able to do coming into recovery. And come to find out it in alignment with Liz's salt analogy, like the flavor actually came out in ways that I hadn't had experience with previously. And I kind of like really leaned into building my recovery because like one of the things that was told to me was like you'll be able to show up for life on life's terms and you'll be able to go anywhere you want to as long as you have a reason for being there. And I really leaned into that by building my recovery up to like shield me wherever I went and not like be dependent upon a thing being away. There are certain things that I haven't had to experience. Like I was big into prescription pills. So like Xanax, I haven't been in a room with like the Xanax all in the middle of the table because like, why would I be, right? But I feel like if that was the case, I'd be okay. But we don't know that because I'm not just in those rooms anymore. But, open mics, the music scene, like immediately, especially hip hop, like immediately I was in rooms full of like smoke and, it's drink everywhere. And that was just what the environment was and what the case was. What I'm finding now is that now that I get paid to do what I do, I all around the country, and I just have these unique opportunities to share my craft in different spaces. Now I'm starting to get a little picky about doing the venues that are super like smoked out in the basement and I got to sit around and wait for, even if I'm the featured artist, like I got to sit around and wait for the openers and I'm just getting really picky and like now I have the autonomy to say like, I'm not going to do that show. Or if I do that, I'll show up when it's showtime and then have me a space where I can go where like it's smoke free and not because it's like I'm against the smoke or anything like that, but because like literally like for breath control, I used to leave this venue with my lungs hurt, but building our well-being into our success, a lot of times, just in general, aside from sobriety, we can feel like I have to grin and bear it and do these things to build the life that I want. And then when I get to a certain point, then, I can just direct things in such a way that gets rid of those things that I don't like. But what ends up happening is you build in your environment the expectation that you'll show up for these things. And however you build that in here, it's going to be that way here. So you might as well right now, like, okay, let me put it to the side and let me put in my rider that if my kids can't come, I can't come. Or if there's no separate car for me that like I won't be able to come, and you'll also be surprised how many people say, all right, cool, we'll get you a car. All right, cool, we'll put in, the budget for your kids to be able to come if they decide to,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, that sounds like to some extent like my experience with writing. In that in the last years when things were like sort of really dark, like I wasn't writing a lot and I didn't know, if I got sober, if I'd be, am I going to be able to do this? That's a life like being an artist or musician. There are certain professions that sort of come with that expectation that you drink or are a drinker. And when growing up, like my literary heroes were drunks and a lot of them died of it. And I sort of probably romanticized that, to be honest. I mean, I remember in college, like an Irish writer coming to visit and just getting like fall down stupid. And, here I am in college and I'm like, I want to be him, like it just looked so cool to me. That sort of idea of being smart and also a little bit out of control was just like very, very appealing. And so I became that, at least maybe I don't know about the smart part, but the out of control part. And I remember I read Stephen King's, and not outing Stephen King because he writes about his sobriety. And he talks about it in his book On Writing, which, I became a professor, and there was a book I'd assigned to all my students. And the part of that book that didn't mean much to them, but always meant the most to me, was him talking about the fear of not being able to write sober, and how many books, like he's saying, like he didn't even remember writing like Cujo. And he was like, that's too bad, because I like that book. I don't remember writing it. But him, getting sober and becoming, and being as productive and still doing great work, and having this great, life as a sober person. And so I remember reading that while I was still drinking, but, in the back of my head, knowing that something was going to have to change, and it gave me a lot of hope. So when I decided to, I wrote a book about Scotland once I got sober. After the Ireland book, then I wrote a book about golf in Scotland, where I traveled and played every seaside course in Scotland, and was in Scotland for 2 months. And that was like, I talked about being sober. I talked about the change in my life and what had happened. I kind of did it I talked to my recovery friends and wanted to make sure I did it the right way, and I wasn't doing it to be showy or be a spokesperson for recovery or anything like that. But I said, it's hard for me to talk about this story if I don't actually, that it's amazing that I was able to play 100 courses in 50 days in Scotland, if I don't tell what the real miracle is. And that's like that I'm alive at all. And so that's, and then recalling that Stephen King was willing to talk about his experience helped me. So I thought, all right, well, I'm gonna actually be honest, which I think as a writer is your first, as I would always tell my students, is your first job. So so I was honest and wrote about it, and since then have not been shy about writing about being sober. But I don't write about it in a preachy way. I don't talk about it as it's something like, hey, look what your life can be. I talk about it as if, I have red hair. I don't eat enough vegetables, and I don't drink either. That's sort of it's just who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the reception like? Like when you switched from, the kind of person who's going to write a book with a beer pint on the front to your very next book? Because I'm sure there's people, you probably had an audience that, followed you, and then there's probably some shifts in that. So what kind of feedback did you get from that? No,
that was there was certainly a lot of anxiety about that, right? Because the Ireland book is I get in some pretty absurd situations. There's a lot of comedy. There's a ton of pubs, and I'm like, all these people that love that stuff, they're gonna hate this story, because this story is sort of a lot more grown up and thoughtful, and is more about sort of real things. And so, but the reception was, I heard once in a while I hear from people, they'll say, oh, the Ireland book's my favorite, because I've written a few more since, and they're like, oh, it's the funniest one, etc., and all that, and that's cool. I'm not that book was the book I wrote at that time in my life, and I'm still proud of it. There's moments during that trip that I'm not particularly proud of, but the book itself, if it's giving people some joy and it makes them want to go experience Ireland, that's great. So I don't have any. Yeah. So the reception was, I was far more worried about it than I needed to be, as with most things, pretty much everything in life. Really, people just sort of were like, wow, this Scotland book's cool too. And look at all these places you went, these things that you did. And, I was like, and it's still kind of funny and all that. So I think I was able to replace like the shenanigans with, and also it was a different point in my life. I was 10 years older, and I knew a little bit more about things, and I had a family, and so naturally the book's going to be a little more grown up. So, but yeah, it was a concern.
I would venture to say that we tend to worry about stuff like that way, like as creators, way more than like people even care.
Way more.
You know what I'm saying? Like I doubt people even care. Like people just rock with you. I think one of my biggest regrets too, like I don't have regrets, but like I wish I would have put more music out high. Like, cause it was crazy was I thought I had this crazy relationship with my craft, but like I never put anything out. Like I never even put anything out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like people want to see your growth. People want to be a part of your story. Like, and I'm sure your story shines through the transition between the Ireland book and the new books, you know?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's if you wanted to follow that journey and go through all of them, it's quite a shift to where I am now, to like where I actually like I just bought a golf course with a struggling golf course in the Catskills, a little 9-hole golf course. I didn't buy some like resort, but
it was kind of a flex. I just want to say that.
I'm not flexing. No, it is
just bought a golf course the other day.
I bet he drinks soft drinks too. You know,
he's got to drink Coke out of a glass.
It's the anti-flex because it's a 9-holer in the Catskill Mountains that was going to close, and they needed someone to come in and try and keep it alive. It was 100 years old, and the superintendent reached out to me and was like, "Hey, do you know anyone who'd be interested in something like this?" And at the time, I'm like, "Well, what if it was me?" And that connection that I had with the superintendent was because he'd gone to the Catskills to go to rehab. He'd originally found the Catskills to get sober, fell in love with it, ended up moving up there with his family. And so, you know, that connection when you find people and gosh, they're not hard to find. You just feel that like nudge that something's pushing you in that direction. And what a great nudge it was, because now we live up there in the summer. We actually did take ownership of the golf course. We spend my summers up there like mowing fairways. And so that'll be the next book, A Course Called Home, which follows from the Ireland, the Scotland, and the America books. So it's talking about the progression. It's insane. And now I'm actually getting to do something rather than just talk about like, look at me, play a lot of golf and go crazy places. It's sort of like I can write about, I can do something that hopefully has an impact on a community that needs some love and a place that needs some love. So it's been a total turnaround from just being so self-focused to actually maybe giving a damn about somebody else.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. As a creator, how do you balance that relationship? Because it sounds like the things you create, the things you write, hold a lot of your personal experience in it.
Yeah.
And so how do you balance, this is what I share as I experience it, and this is what I'm experiencing, and experiencing for experience sake?
Yeah, right.
Like, how do you turn off the thing? Like, somebody pointed out to me maybe like a week ago that when she first found out about me, she had found a piece of content that I had made, and I had got like an ant infestation in the house, and like I turned the ant infestation and flipped it around and made it to, like made a piece of content that was like, this is how it serves me, and this is how, like, and when she told me that just how I am in life is now, it's like, oh man, it just sounds like I was really working to take everything that I was experiencing and turning it into something for somebody else. And there's a lot of things that I do turn things into things for other people now, but there's a couple things that like I hold on to and keep like close to my chest for real. And it's just like a unique experience that it's like, it brings a smile to my face that I know that I've had this experience for now. Right.
Yeah. It's really hard, right?
For you. Yeah.
It's hard to find that because honestly, like outside of my family, which is probably, and they even end up in my stories. So like, I think I'm almost, I don't know how to look at the world in another way, like that, in the fact that you're always, everything could be the next story. Everything could be, there's times we go on vacation and if there's no golf around or whatever, like I can, maybe by the 5th day, I've like really kind of just chilled out, and I'm present, and I'm not thinking about anything in terms of I've taken those glasses off, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, it's a tricky thing, and it's probably why I think this will probably be my last nonfiction book. And I'll go back to writing. My first book was a novel, and I'll probably go back to writing fiction because we live in a world where we are so publicly characters in our own stories, whether it be through books or social media or whatever, that it can just be a little exhausting. And so I'm looking forward to going back and just sort of making things up and being able to not wondering if like every moment in your life is something you should be taking a note about, because it could, or if it's going to end up in something. But but I'd say that's why I love being home, because home's a place I'm not writing about or thinking about. But yeah, for the most part, if I'm traveling or if I'm out there in the world, like, it's related to something I'm writing about or I'm going to write about. So yeah. It's a challenge.
Yeah. So there's somebody that's been following Tom Coyne from the very beginning, right? And they want to know everything about you, and they feel like maybe there's something that they don't know, and they want to know that. What is that thing? What do you think that thing is?
I think the thing that they wouldn't probably know is how, what's interesting, because it's probably something anyone in recovery would know without even knowing me, but how much like self-doubt how much I doubt myself, how I'm not, how much energy it takes for me to be like on and in crowds and stuff like that. Because what I do, like a lot of my job, I do a lot of public speaking, and I go and give talks and this, that, and the other. And those are environments where if you went and like saw one of my events, you'd be like, oh, this is like his natural place. Like, look at him with the people and in the crowd and kissing babies and shaking hands, right? and I've done that since I was a kid, right? Like, student council and all that crap. Like I was that like, please everybody, make everybody like you. It's a skill a lot of addicts know well, and it's something that I developed and was able to use to my advantage in different ways, and that hasn't gone away. But now I'm just aware of like how exhausting that is for me, how much that takes out of me. And I think, someone might be surprised to know that I actually don't like I don't like being the center of attention, and it actually sort of makes me uncomfortable. Of course, we all have an ego and a side of it that you're like, oh, it's look, this makes me feel good because now I know people like me, and there's that. I'm just like, apart from that side of it, like, it's just not my natural thing. That might not be the most obvious thing if you followed me around and sort of saw what I do from day to day.
Yeah, I feel like that's not uncommon, folks. I mean, you hear about like big giant movie stars and stuff who are very private and who, really just value that privacy. And it just throws us all for a loop, I think, as the public, of the people feeling like, well, you put yourself into this position where you're this famous person. So, be out there, be out there, be in front of us, perform all the time. But it's like the folks who are really good at that often are the ones that it's like, it's a costume they're putting on, it's a shield sometimes that they're putting on that I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's very cool that you would share that with us and our audience. Yeah. So thanks for that. I think, vulnerability.
Approval, my addiction to approval has not gone anywhere. So as much as I'd like to think that someday I'll truly get over it. And there are moments when I do, and there are moments when you're forced to, when life gives you, when you get a shitty review, or, someone tells you this isn't good enough, and, or it's not good at all. And so, it can force you to, and those moments are blessings, because it forces you to be like, oh, wait a second. okay, I'm not defined by this thing that I made. I'm actually, who am I and how am I treating other people? That's the thing. And when things are good and it's rolling and everybody loves you, like, you forget that fast. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I forget that fast. So the kick in the ass is good every once in a while.
Definitely.
The ant infestation to our egos.
Get out of here. well, Tom, we appreciate you coming through the Rise Recover Live podcast, man. This has been a dope conversation, and we hope your followers, people who already know you, heard something that maybe they didn't hear about you before and got to know you a little bit deeper. Mm-hmm. And we're excited for our audience to learn you and find out about you. Do you have anything that you want to drop at the end of this episode for where people can follow you or find your books?
Yeah, absolutely. You can check out anything at tomcoyne.com or follow me at CoyneWriter, COYNE, and see what I'm up to. And come visit us at the golf course we have now in the Catskills because we need golfers.
Yeah, that's exciting. Wait, so
it's fun.
What's it called, if you don't mind sharing?
It's called Sullivan County Golf Club. It's in Liberty, New York.
Okay.
And it's really cool. And we have a fair number of sober golfers coming to visit, and it's a very chill spot, the Catskills. If you ever just need a place to check out and just relax, it is it's only 2 hours from New York, but it's a whole world away.
Nice. Well, I'm in upstate New York, so I'll see if my husband's down for a trip where he can golf and I can enjoy being in the mountains. I can do the chilling.
Bring your dog. Diet Coke with an umbrella. Get a Diet Coke. Yeah, we'll set you up.
Oh boy!
But you'll have to cut her grilled cheese in fours, Tom.
I don't know. We just got a new restaurant, so I don't know. Let's see if it's on the menu.
Well, see, that's all I need. Vacation. Just check that right off my list. Well, cool. Well, we'll make sure that we link everything that you shared in the show notes so that folks can find you and your new book that's going to be coming out soon. And we're really, really, really grateful to have you here, and grateful once again. Shout out to Gavin for bringing us the coolest people all the time. And for everyone listening, make sure you check out Tom and his work. Keep showing up, and we will see you next time.
Catch you later.
So now you're excited. Bryce, Liz, how do I get involved with the Phoenix? Well, my friend, it is super simple. We actually have an app. Head over to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or look in the show notes of this podcast, wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast, and go download the Phoenix app.
The Phoenix app makes it so easy to find classes that are near you, or to access our virtual class schedule where you can hop on from the comfort of your home. You can also join our groups and have a conversation with someone from the Phoenix community from anywhere in the world. Please make sure that you join the podcast group where you can connect with Bryce and I and other listeners. Everything that you need is in the show notes. You can also head to our website at www.thephoenix.org. And maybe while you're there, you click the volunteer tab and get even more involved.